These are hickory nuts. Today is the 30th of August, and these were picked about 2 days ago. The husk has yet to dry out a bit. You can see it start to split like this, and then once it does, if I can find one that's ready, well, this will pop off. I can't do it with one hand. But what's inside is this. And what we do with these, once you collect a whole bunch of them, I'll float them for bad ones. In other words, well, sink them is more descriptive of what happens. You sink nuts, and the ones that float you pitch because they may have had their shells compromised. After that, I'll cure them exactly like I would with black walnuts, and then use them for baking or eating or whatever else. Supposedly these are similar to pecans, which are a delicacy. I couldn't pass this up. There were far too many of them. These came, well, this will be more for me in future reference and less for you. These came from the peninsula. We used to camp there a lot, and lots of hickory trees. So many. I remember we would use the bark to flavor our meat as we, cooked around the campfire. Also on the way up there, if you take the high path, I found a butternut tree. Now these are, take a nice close look at it. These are a relative of the black walnut. They're sometimes called the white walnut. And it's awful. It stains the fingers the same way. It's sticky. This has a stickiness to it. And it smells very much like the black walnut. And did you pick the black walnut out that's in here yet? How good are you? There it is. This is a black walnut. I put it in just for comparison. The trees were growing side by side, but I'm not going to collect black walnuts this year because I have so many of them. I've never tried butternuts before, but it seems almost the same as the black walnut. It actually seems worse to get the husk off, but we'll see how it goes. Well, it is a close relative, this white walnut or butternut. It is a close relative of the black walnut, and in fact, I can't even tell the trees apart. I had one. This tree was right next to a black walnut, as I mentioned, and the trees were nearly identical. The only way that you can tell them apart is the bark. The bark of this was more smooth than that. Actually, scratch that. I can't even remember, so I don't want to go on record saying. But there is a difference in their bark. These are black walnuts from last year or the year before. I can't remember. It's worth mentioning that if you cure them correctly, like these were, they keep for a while. So I'm not going to do them this year because I have enough, and they still have a really rich flavor, and I have almost no bad ones. My curing method really works well. I do think, however, that nuts that are 2 years old maybe lose some of their potency and flavor. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because the black walnut has flavor to spare. It's actually overpowering if you use it in baking. But something you should try. Absolutely. Try putting some black walnut in cornbread. Oh, is that lovely. Unlike the black walnut, the butternut is actually endangered. It's extremely rare. And this is the only tree that I even know of. And as I've said, this is note to me, not you. It's at the crest of the high road on the way to the peninsula. There's one tree, it's up at the very top, and it's beside a puddle. And the way to do it is to shake the tree. I shook the tree, and that's how these all came out. Okay, so since this is really about the vicarious experience, though, I'm going to cut into this just so that you may have a better understanding of what these are like. Okay, we'll do some hickory nuts first, just because they're easy. This is for those of you who might never see a hickory nut or a butternut or a black walnut because you don't live around them, and so I want you to kind of get the feel. This is what's inside, and once they're ready, it pops off pretty easily. Now these are obviously the easiest of the three, if you're patient. Oh, yeah, that isn't ready yet. I'll have to wait. The black walnut is awful. I'm not even going to do it because it stains so badly. And also I have a video about it, but it's just here for comparison. Now these butternuts, let's explore those. I keep a dedicated knife just for the black walnut. But this is new to me. When it's ready, this is what I would do with a black walnut, and it'll just twist away. But I don't think it's so simple here. This has kind of a citrusy smell, which it's worth noting that the husk smell is similar in all three. There's some presumably similar compound that's found in all of the nuts because both black and white walnuts and the hickory nut have a similar smell. It's pungent, kind of sweet, kind of citrusy, but almost nauseating too. It's not something you would ever want to eat, which I'm almost certain is an adaptation to keep things from eating them. It's very common to find any of these types of nuts with a squirrel bitten husk, and then they give up. If you were to taste this, you would quickly spit it out, I'm certain. Well, it has a really porous, irregular surface, just like a black walnut does. I'll give you a close-up of that in contrast, but I think in order to clean this off well, just for video, I'll use a wire brush. But first I need to get this off of my hands. It will stain. Not as bad as the black walnut will stain, but as I've said, it seems as though it's the same compound or a very similar compound in a lesser concentration. I want to say again that the similarities between this and the black walnut are too numerous to list. You can even see the light greenish stuff. It starts to oxidize or whatever in the air makes it change, and it turns to a dark brown. And it happens rather quickly. This is the same way as with the black walnut. Here's the black walnut for comparison. And of course I wouldn't recommend preparing your butternuts this way. It's far too time consuming. I did it totally for presentation, just so that you can kind of get an understanding of what it's like. I would just allow this to naturally dry off, and then it would be much easier to clean off after a while. And I can't really break into the nut meat right now because it's uncured, so it will just be rubbery and the taste is very poor at this point. Well, I hope you were able to extract some meat from this video, and I'll see you again some other time.